Good evening, professor and classmates. On this occasion, I'm going to present a brief summary about the Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice is well known as one of the most famous plays written by William Shakespeare. Its genre is about comedy, but its tone involves not only the comic, but also the romantic and the tragic. It was written in 1598, but it appeared for the first time in the quarters in 1600. The Merchant of Venice have many characters, but trying to be honest with the video that we have seen previously, I'm going only to mention the characters that are mentioned into the video. For example, Shylock. Shylock is a Jewish money lender in Venice who is angered by his mistreatment at the hands of Venice Christians, particularly Antonio. Portia, a wealthy heiress in Belmont, whose beauty is only matched by her intelligence. Antonio, an anti-Semitic merchant whose love for his friend Bassanio is big. Jessica is the Shylock's daughter, but she hates life in her father's house. Bassanio is an aristocrat and a gentleman of Venice, and the dear friend to Antonio. Graziano is a Bassanio's friend who accompanies him to Belmont. Lorenzo is a friend of Bassanio and also of Antonio. Nerissa is the Portia's lady in waiting and also her confidant. We can mention also the Prince of Morocco. The Prince of Morocco is a Moorish prince who seeks Portia's hand in marriage. The Prince of Aragon. The Prince of Aragon is an arrogant Spanish gentleman and nobleman who also attempts to win Portia's hands by picking a casket. The Duke of Venice. The Duke of Venice is the ruler of Venice who presides over Antonio's trial. Dr. Bellario. Although Dr. Bellario never appeared into the Merchant of Venice, it is a wealthy power lawyer and Portia's cousin that sent her a letter allowing her to take his place into the Antonio's trial. Balthazar is the Portia's servant who she dispatches to get the appropriate material from Dr. Bellario. In this case, we are talking about the letters that I mentioned before. Where the Merchant of Venice was setting. The Merchant of Venice really have two settings. The first one is Venice, where bond was made between Shylock and Antonio. Remember that in this area, Venice is located in Italy, and this place is setting in the 16th century. And Venice was a center of naval trade, and it was a point meeting between Western European lands and Leicester regions. Remember that Venice is surrounded by water. For this situation, it can give ships easy access. Also, Venice is a European city with accessible Jewish population in it. The other setting is about Belmont, where the casket plot of Portia occurs. Let me tell you something about the plot. Really are two main plot strands to the Merchant of Venice, both closely interconnected, because the plot of this place has two situations that are involved into the developing of this place. For example, the first plot involved Portia, the wealthy heiress of Belmont, who decides that she will marry whichever suitor picks up the right casket when faced with a choice of three. These caskets were made of gold, silver, and lead. Portia is a wealthy heiress of Belmont, whose father is actually dead, but he left a strange will in which he would give permission for her daughter get married only with the men that pick up the correct casket that have inside the Portia's portrait. And the second plot is about the loan that the Jewish money lender give to Antonio. And this situation makes another plot. These two plot lines are connected because Antonio borrows money from Shylock in order to help out his friend Bassanio, who fell in love with Portia. But Bassanio is an aristocrat in Venice that has lost all his money, and he needs money in order to pretend the Portia's hands and asks to Antonio for a monetary loan. However, Antonio can borrow him that money because he is in a depressed state because of his ships are on the sea and they have problem with them. And on this occasion, Antonio recommended Bassanio to get a loan from the Jewish Shylock. And when Bassanio convinced Shylock to give him a monetary loan, taking advantage the good credit of Antonio. And Shylock asked him a strange proposal. He didn't charge any interest over this loan, but he asked for Antonio a pound of his own flesh in case that he can pay back the money. Meanwhile, in Belmont, Portia is melancholic because he needs to get married, but he needs to receive the suitors that pretend to pick up the correct casket in her house. The first one trying to pick up the correct casket is the Prince of Morocco, who chose the gold casket, finding inside it a skull that means that behind the white gold, the corruption is hidden. The second suitor, the Prince of Aragon, pick up the gold casket, finding in it a picture about an idiot. Meanwhile, in Venice, when Bassanio has the loan from Shylock, he departs to Belmont with Graciano, his best friend, in order to pick up the correct casket, and he picked up the lead casket, finding inside it the Portia's portrait. And for that reason, she got married with her and also received the fortune that Portia has in order to the heritage from his father. Meanwhile, in Venice, Antonio can pay back the money to Shylock, and Shylock, taking advantage that the ships of Antonio has sunk or have been lost on the sea, he decided to recover his money and ask for it to Antonio. And Antonio sent a letter to Bassanio because he can pay back the money to Shylock. Bassanio decided to take 6 ducats, twice the original amount that Shylock loaned to him, taking advantage, as I mentioned before, the good credit of Antonio. Then Antonio and Graziano depart to Venice in order to pay back the loan to Shylock, offering him 6,000 ducats. But Shylock, taking into advance that the revenge that the bad feelings that he is feeling by Antonio, he refused the money and asked for the flesh of Antonio. Meanwhile, in Belmont, Portia and Nerissa decided to disguise as a man of law and come to Venice in order to present into the court and the Antonio's behalf. When Shylock is asking for the pound of flesh of Antonio into the court that is presided by the prince of the Duke of Venice, the Duke of Venice tried to pardon Antonio, but Shylock refused that. And Portia, disguised as a man of law, first asked to Shylock for mercy, but he refused. And when he takes the knife in order to cut the flesh of Antonio, Portia immediately stopped him and say that the contract only includes a pound of flesh, but not any drop of blood from Antonio. And the amount is about 1 pound of flesh, no more, no less. And even when Bassanio offers to Shylock the higher amount that the original sum of the loan, Shylock refused and asked for 3 times the original amount. On this occasion, Portia refused that proposal, and Shylock decided to cut the flesh of Antonio. But Portia said that when a foreign people conspired with a Venice citizen, it like he's conspired with against the Venice, and Venice can confiscate all the goods and lands. And immediately Shylock get back down, and obviously the Duke of Venice pardoned the life of Shylock, and in this case, Antonio shows mercy toward Shylock and decide that he give him the half of the money in case that Shylock converts to the Christian religion. And the other half will get to Lorenzo and Jessica when they got married. Remember that Jessica is the Shylock's daughter who finally elopes with Lorenzo in order to get married. After that, there are 3 happy couples: Bassanio and Portia, Lorenzo and Jessica, and Graciano and Nerissa. But the rings that they ask into the court are the same that the Portia gave before to Bassanio. At the end, she tells him the truth, and all of them were happy. Next. About the climax. The climax on this occasion is when Portia disguised as a man of law and intervenes on Antonio's behalf. At the climax of the plot, when the story takes the turn and everything goes in favor of Antonio and against Shylock, Antonio, being Christian, shows mercy over Shylock and requests the Duke to return his property upon a certain condition that I have mentioned before. As we can notice, mercy represents in this play sweet and selfless. In my opinion and conclusion, The Merchant of Venice is one of the Shakespeare's most popular comedies, as I mentioned before, and is essentially a play about property, but not only about these themes. The play asks questions of value and life itself. However, money plays a significant role for most of the characters. Remember that Venice has a long-standing association with trade commerce and money during this era. The great clash in The Merchant of Venice is between money and love. But in conclusion, I think that there are many themes in this play, not only the property, the money, but also the religion, the mercy, the revenge, the selfish, but above all, a good friendship. Next. Well, in this slide, I show you some reference about where I took some information in order to make this presentation, trying to explain a brief summary about The Merchant of Venice. That's all. Thanks for your attention.